AMAs and really sending in some incredible questions. There's been some fantastic questions. I know so many of you have like really trying to unpack this partnership and what it means. We've had a bunch of people throwing questions regarding obviously the PR that a lot of people have seen get launched. And this is going to be the perfect opportunity to unpack a lot of these questions for you in a bit more detail. So with that being said, I think we are good to get started. So fantastic. Well, look, all welcome to the ionet and 01 AMA. Incredibly excited to be here. Today we have some fantastic guests. What we're going to do, we're going to do a round of introductions for those of you who may not have met some of us. So I'm going to quickly kick off the introductions from myself. Then we'll pass it to Tarsif, Gaurav, and then our very, very special guest from 01 themselves. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Alan. I'm today's host for today's AMA and Fireside Chat. I'm the VP of Marketing here at ionet. And yeah, really excited to kick off this conversation to unpack the role that ionet and 01 will play in essentially decentralization, AI agents, and more. Handing it over to Tarsif for a quick intro.
Hey guys, great to be here again. My name is Tausif Ahmed. I'm VP of Business Development here at io.net. Excited to jump into another AMA here.
Cool. Gaurav?
Hi guys, I'm Gaurav. I work as a CTO at io.net, and my past background was that I was part of the tech leadership in Binance. Before that, in Booking Holdings Group as a part of Agoda and Amazon. Right? Always been part of the tech orgs, and yes, doing the same here.
Brilliant, fantastic to hear. And last but not least, our guest from 01labs. Would you like to give a quick introduction on yourself, your job title, and a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, to everyone at ionet for having us here today. My name is V. You're a PR lead at a 01labs, and a previous experience here in Web3 has been a lot of a degen activity, a lot of community management for other ordinal projects and NFT projects, and previously worked with a incubated project by Z1labs called Photon Labs. Really excited for today's chat, and thank you again for having us.
Amazing, fantastic. While we've got you on the line, for those of you who are unfamiliar with 01labs, could you provide some additional context on what 01labs is? For those members of Iron Nation who perhaps haven't read the PR, perhaps are not familiarized with you guys, if you can just give a couple of lines in terms of exactly what you do, I think that will help give the necessary context for the rest of today's conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Tal. So 01labs is pretty much a decentralized AI ecosystem. We focus largely on bringing forth grassroots and early stage teams. We provide tools for them to develop their innovations and applications through. And we focus largely on forming partnerships to expand the ecosystem and the decentralized network.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And guys, while we are doing this AMA, just as an FYI, if you do have any further questions, feel free to send them through to the community moderators, to the astronauts. They're coming straight through to me. We've had a bunch of questions coming about this AMA, so I know that many of you are incredibly excited, and I'm going to kick it off with the first one. So I guess the first topic is that 01labs has mentioned plans to leverage ionet's GPU compute network to train AI systems for its KeyMaker platform. So the first question that I have for 01 is, could you provide more context on how 01 intends to utilize this infrastructure to enhance KeyMaker's capabilities?
Yeah, definitely. Amazing questions, by the way. Well, as previously mentioned, we do plan to leverage ionet's GPU compute capabilities more than anything to enable the robust training of said AI agents on the KeyMaker platform. This integration ultimately primes the agents that are being developed for seamless deployment on our open marketplace, as well as allowing developers to build and deploy AI-driven decentralized applications in a more efficient manner, right?
Yeah, fantastic. That's exactly it. And Tarsif, from your perspective, ionet, additionally, I'm very curious to understand what your vision is for this partnership and how essentially you feel this partnership aligns with our mission here at ionet to drive innovation, especially within the decentralized AI space?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to answer that. So I think if you kind of look at what IONET's fundamental vision and mission is, right? So we sort of exist at this foundational compute layer that's sort of like the underlying infrastructure for all AI applications out there, right? And kind of technically level software out there. And I think we've been really focused on building up that foundation because it is, at the end of the day, an enabler, and it is so important for the rest of the decentralized AI ecosystem to have a decentralized compute layer that they could build on top of, right? So I think IONET as a project and as a company is hyper focused on building that foundational compute layer. But when you kind of take that mission forward and kind of think about sort of like the longer term vision of what we're trying to do, we're really trying to decentralize like the entire AI ecosystem, right? And there's a variety of different parts of the AI ecosystem, of the AI tech stack, that all have to come together to make sure that there's no sort of like centralized point of failure, that ensures that that vision can't come to life, whether it's on the data side, whether that's on the compute side, whether that's on the dev tooling side, whether that's on the distribution side. So I think what makes this partnership with Zero One really exciting is that Zero One brings a lot of those other aspects of the decentralized AI ecosystem, um, to the table on top of the foundational compute layer that IONET is bringing, right? So as was just mentioned, um, essentially every developer kind of needs a variety of different tools to kind of like design and develop their AI solution, whether that's a decentralized AI application or an AI agent or any other form of software that exists at the intersection of crypto and AI. And I think with the capabilities that are provided by Zero One's KeyMaker platform, in terms of like dev tools, agentic frameworks, and the open marketplace, it really kind of creates like a one-stop shop for developers to come to both parties, as part of this partnership, use compute from IONET and essentially kind of build using Zero One sort of tooling available, whatever sort of AI application that they need, and then also distribute that and go to market, through Zero One's capabilities too. So I think through this partnership, we're really creating almost like a one-stop shop for any AI developer, to come in and start building a decentralized AI app, which I think is a really exciting sort of like shift in capabilities here in terms of what's available in the market today.
Yeah, for sure. No, I couldn't agree more there, Tarsif. We're here at ionet, we're incredibly excited about this partnership, and it's fantastic to see, the consistency of these partnerships and essentially the progression that we're making with the receptivity of various AI partners within the space. So, huge shout out to Zero One there for that. That's great to hear. Now, moving on to the next topic. A lot of the people want to know about this topic of AI agents, right? We've seen AI agents become increasingly a focal point within the AI landscape, especially as the tools have become essentially becoming more capable of performing like complex tasks that are autonomous in nature. So, a question over there to Zero One. Could you elaborate on how the KeyMaker platform equips developers with the tools to essentially create and deploy some of these AI agents, and what types of complex tasks are they designed to handle?
Yeah, definitely. As previously mentioned by Tal, Zero One's a keymaker platform, offers pretty much as just as verbatim as Tal had mentioned, a one-stop shop for developers to access, tools, more than 100 DAI tools designed to streamline the creation of those autonomous agents, as well as the marketplace for them to launch and then go ahead and I guess advertise if we want to use that word, their produced applications. They can access the discoverability of the DAI apps. At the same time, it empowers the interested devs to build faster and smarter and safer AI agents. And then, as previously mentioned, launch them on our decentralized app store. Usually, it's very particularly popular with the developers seeking to create highly effective on chain AI agents.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Thank you for that, Alejandro. Makes perfect sense. Just to unpack that a little bit further, I'm really keen to understand this from a tech perspective. And, with that being said, we have obviously on the call our CTO from ionet, Gaurav. So Gaurav, additionally, ionet from a tech perspective, I'm really keen to understand how our infrastructure is specifically enabled to enhance the training and deployment of some of these autonomous agents to help obviously maximize their potential in decentralized applications. Could you share a little bit more about what we're doing within the landscape of AI agents and how we're building towards that?
Hi, guys. Sorry, I was on mute. Um, so,
No worries.
apologies. Okay. So basically, when we talk about creating a decentralized stack, it has to be decentralized at each and every component level. And compute plays one of the most fundamental and important role there. That's where we start from to give help to any of the decentralized AI agent who are trying to come in the market. But that's just the beginning, right? Uh, in terms when we say our infrastructure stands out, it's because first it's a decentralized compute power, right? Because we leverage high performance GPUs like A100s, the H100s, and a distributed network, which basically provides very cost effective and scalable infra, which will enable these startups to come up and not spend too much of their money and their funding in the infra, but they can actually spend that money in the actual people who will basically bring a lot of innovation in. So that's one advantage we have, that first we provide this decentralized compute, which takes them away from the centralized nature of they being impacted if anything goes wrong. And because it's decentralized, and the way we source our inventory and the ethos with which we price it in, the amount of money these startups will have to spend on this infra is extremely less compared to the centralized players, and people can use this money in the innovation side of things. That's one, right?
Yeah.
Second, as Tausif was talking about briefly, we are creating an end-to-end support for all these AI players going forward. So we are launching one product very soon, which is called IO Intelligence, and by which startups basically can create, deploy, run inference on their models seamlessly. And that will make it a all on one platform. And
Wow.
this, in my opinion, will be a big game changer. Imagine the developers and the AI startups don't have to think about the infra and its management. IO will take care of all these issues for them. That'll be one big thing going forward, right? Third is the optimized AI piece, right? Our systems basically are built for high throughput workloads. We have like advanced technological GPUs backed by NVLinks, and very soon we'll be launching containerization also, which will be important for the efficiency gains which a lot of these AI players want. And then obviously, because we are decentralized, the reliability is there, the transparency is there, our GPUs are validated, the architecture is right there in front of people, how we vet the hardware, how we make sure that if somebody is not performing, how we like basically move them out and bring the right inventory in. Keeping all these aspects in mind, I think the IO infrastructure and the platform which we are building brings a lot of value in for all these AI players uh, in creating their tech stack on top of us.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing the necessary context there, Gaurav. Incredibly exciting to hear some of the developments here at ionet, and I can't wait for some of the team here, especially in our community members who are so eager to see some of the progression in our tech roadmap and what we have coming, see some of this vision come to life. So really appreciate you sharing some context there. Moving on to the next topic, we I think as a community wanted to understand that beyond the immediate technical integrations of GPU resources, like what does this partnership between Zero One and ionet really look like, right? And I think that people wanted to understand essentially like, how this partnership will contribute to the wider, more holistic, decentralized AI ecosystem. And so, I'm probably going to bring this question to Tarsif. Tarsif, could you share more about, let's say, the long-term vision of this collaboration, looking beyond perhaps more of the sort of immediate benefits? What are some of the long-term advantages that you see about this partnership, not just between us and Zero One, but also more of the long-term impact that this could potentially have on the industry?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a lot to kind of unpack there, and I think there's a lot to sort of like talk about, right? Because I think obviously in the AI space, things can move pretty quickly and in a lot of different directions, which can be really hard to predict, even a few months out from here. But I think in terms of how I see this, partnership sort of really maturing into a longer term vision and how it affects that. I'd actually go back to kind of some of the things that we've talked about in terms of like the immediate partnership as well, right? Like specifically that point I mentioned about essentially creating sort of this one-stop shop for AI developers to be able to build and deploy their AI applications and through a fully decentralized AI tech stack. So I think I go back to when I was at I used to lead partnerships and BD at AWS in a prior life before coming to IO, and actually one of the things that we would talk about in terms of how we would approach developers was fundamentally just giving them, instead of sort of like us building specific products or services that we think that the market would want, we would essentially give builders the tools that they need to build and then just let them loose, right? And kind of have them figure out what exactly they want to experiment with, what they want to try out, and what they want to go to market, and then kind of really sort of like really turn on the acceleration on the experimentation side of it and the building side of it. And this in itself kind of really drives a lot of innovation by being able to do that. So I kind of think of the vision for this partnership to be very similar, where we're essentially enabling a lot of those building blocks for builders and for developers by offering them this foundational decentralized compute layer, adding on a variety of sort of like AI dev tools on top, and also offering a distribution mechanism through the marketplace on top of that. And of course, like access to a variety of like models and agentic frameworks and things like that out of the box to start being able to build and iterate pretty quickly. So I kind of think of it as, the broader vision for this partnership really comes down to abstracting away a lot of the complexities that developers face in terms of having to build today, right? And I think that's kind of what Gaurav was alluding to with, IO intelligence, the model marketplace, and things like that too. It's right now with IO's compute layer, a lot of people have to think about, of course, like provisioning their compute and then managing it and, scaling it and things like that, which kind of take a lot away from, their sort of bread and butter core competency of actually building and trying out cool new AI apps. So the more we can kind of start to abstract away these unnecessary pieces of admin and things that developers don't really want to do, and essentially kind of create a more seamless developer experience end to end from the build phase all the way to the deployment and distribution phase, I think that kind of really creates like a much broader design space for these developers, and also essentially kind of democratizes access to the development cycle of these DAI apps and agent applications. So in terms of like long term of how I think this will kind of progress, I think it'll just like really open up this space and access to this space for a lot more developers, make it a lot easier for people to deploy agent apps and decentralized AI applications. And who knows? I mean, once we get to sufficient scale, and I think once sort of AI agents actually become particularly sophisticated, like who's to say that the agents themselves don't start kind of accessing these tools and start deploying their own AI agent apps on top, just because it's fully decentralized, fully permissionless, fully open. So any sort of agent out there could start using these themselves to start building on top of these tools as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, first of all, thank you so much for that, Tarsif. It's incredibly exciting to see that we're removing the layers of friction that have just traditionally been associated with these technologies in order to make innovation essentially just more seamless, efficient, and deployable amongst various ecosystems. So really, really exciting to hear that. Moving on to the same question across to 01, would really like to understand from your perspective, like what is some of the more meaningful value that you would like to see from this partnership, and what's really your long-term vision as well?
Yeah, thank you. I think Torab actually covered a lot of the points that we were going to describe, but as well, a lot of the long term benefits that we're looking forward to is a lot of the innovative applications and processes that are being brought forth by a lot of builders and devs in the space. As what I've mentioned, there's applications that are being built not only by ionet that bring a lot of cost reduction to a lot of these early stage teams which are building. And we're very excited to see what other type of innovations and applications are brought forth, not only to the infrastructure that already exists within RA projects and organizations, but to the applications that users are able to interact with and devs themselves. A huge issue that we found earlier was that a lot of builders and devs were having issues accessing these and using more than anything these applications because they were either too technical or complicated for them. And seeing them streamlined and being, created in a more efficient manner for other devs to use is something that we really look forward to as well.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that context. Well, guys, that's some of the initial questions that you guys have sent in. What we're going to do now is move to the next segment of the AMA, where we're going to ask questions specifically to ionet and zero1 that are more nuanced to their organizations. And then as the final segment of the AMA, we're going to take questions from the floor, which you guys are sending in right now live as we're talking. And there are some fantastic questions there. So I'm really looking forward to answering that. With that being said, I'm moving the first question over to ionet. And it's clear that some people want to understand from a technical standpoint what are the specific capabilities of ionet's infrastructure that essentially make it well suited for generative AI startups. We've always said that generative AI startups are our beachhead customers. So how are we ensuring that our platform is essentially meeting the computational demands of training and that are obviously required to be deployed for generative AI models on our ecosystem, but B, what are we doing to remove some of those layers of friction in order for us to make us most conducive for some of these generative AI startups? So I'm going to start off with Gaurav for this question, since it's a little bit more tech focused, and then move over to Tarsif.
Sam, I'm having a bit of network issues. Can you repeat the question again, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello,
So
am I audible?
yes, I can hear you fine. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Your voice is breaking for me.
Okay. Is it breaking for you, Tarsif?
No, for me, it's raining outside, so I'm pretty sure it's because of that.
Okay, fantastic.
I can hear you, Milan.
Okay, brilliant. So Gaurav, essentially the question in a nutshell is how is ionet making itself and positioning itself to be most conducive for generative AI startups to help them deploy their AI systems on our platform? And what are we doing to essentially make us well suited for the startup ecosystem in order to support them with their DePIN and AI needs?
So I think the way we do things out here is that we look at the problem, the fundamental problems of any startup, and then we start to break it down at what is the maximum ROI we can give them, the least amount of effort, and then we start creating these stacks one by one. For example, when we started the company at that time, we saw that people wanted GPUs just not at like few popular location, but at a lot of locations. The edge computing was becoming popular. Then a lot of people wanted, obviously, in the Web3 side of things, a decentralized supply, and they wanted it at a very good price. So that's where we started from. We basically created a decentralized platform for GPUs where people can literally get a GPU not at the popular like sites like Singapore, Hong Kong, US, and all like these popular places, but they can actually go at a very uh, like a country level, city level depth, and can get GPUs there, which enables them to create stacks for edge computing also, which is becoming very very popular nowadays, right?
Yeah.
And second, we brought in the ethos of Web3, and we made sure that the prices of GPUs are as low as possible so that the startups can afford these GPUs and can actually bring in innovation in the industry. That's where we started from. Then we did a good job there. And then we are in touch with all these startups which were helping. And then we started hearing them like, what is the other problem they have? The second thing which they had was that anytime a new Web3 AI company comes in, then they have to have this ML ops people. These are folks which create pipelines in these AI companies to deploy models, create models, and iterate on these things. Now, then we started working on that so that these companies get, first of all, GPUs, then they get this infra, and they don't have to think about these problems. They have to only think about creating the models and the problem statement itself. All the other pieces in the pipeline, we'll take care for them. So that's the second piece we started working on internally. And that's a product we are launching very soon, which we call IO Intelligence, wherein if anybody, let's say, creates a model or there's a popular model they want to iterate over, they can literally deploy that model in our GPUs with little to no effort. Then the whole life cycle of creating a model, uh, sourcing the data, deploying, inferencing, all these things will also be one click solution overall. So the amount of effort, time, and money these companies historically used to spend in this work, it'll be totally taken away. So they'll get the bandwidth. That means the opportunity cost which they used to have earlier, that will be lowered down. And second, the money itself will also be very, very small. So then they can totally focus on innovation. That's the second piece now we are focusing on. Now, there are other problems also we are hearing from these AI companies. It's a roadmap thing, so I don't want to open it here. But yes, that's how we approach. And we always have our ears to the ground, listening to the issues of these companies. And whenever we see there's a common problem with these AI companies, which they're facing, we are there to help them and create products around that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, Gaurav. And Tarsif, a similar question to you, but perhaps not from a tech perspective. Just want to understand, as someone who's leading partnerships at ionet, what are some of the steps that we're taking here just to ensure that our organization is essentially positioned in a very, very conducive way to help some of the more nuanced problems that naturally startups have, right? And in particular, in this case, generative startups have, in order to make the integration, the deployment of the technology as seamless as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Gaurav kind of really hit the nail on the head there, right? In terms of how he sort of like laid this out. But just to kind of add on top of it, at least from a sort of like partnerships and customer facing perspective, the infrastructure that we have here at ionet is so foundational that we can actually we have product market fit across a variety of different use cases, and sort of like needs that generative AI startups have. So I think a couple things that to start off with that we've seen some great traction around. I think a decentralized compute infrastructure layer has been really great for AI startups, especially consumer AI startups who have inferencing needs, right? So for those unfamiliar with what inferencing means, it's essentially when a AI model or an LLM provides an output in response to your input, right? So for example, when you ask ChatGPT something and it gives you an answer, that's basically an inference it's doing, and it needs compute to do that. So one of the key things that a lot of startups, Gen AI startups, actually need to optimize for when it comes to an inferencing heavy sort of application, is to reduce latency and time to response, right? Like, of course, if ChatGPT took like 5 minutes to answer your question every single time you asked it something, like it probably wouldn't have had the explosive growth that you see it have. And very similarly for all the other sort of AI applications that have come on the scene there. So actually having a decentralized infrastructure stack spread out globally, where these particular end compute nodes are closer to the actual customers doing the inferencing itself, kind of creates this much higher performance output when these nodes are closer to the actual customer, thus leading to better performance and better customer experience. I think this, kind of like the trend now in terms of AI models is starting to move from, I think the initial generation with ChatGPT and Anthropic and all these others was very much text to text AI models. You put in text, it outputs text back. But now there's a lot of really powerful multimodal AI models coming to market, whether it's, like text to image, text to video, whether it's text to sound, image to sound, things like this, like a variety of different permutations and combinations. And as these outputs get more complex, like obviously having an AI model generate a video is a lot more computationally intensive than it is to generate a text response. a decentralized infrastructure compute layer, a compute infrastructure layer becomes doubly important in order to kind of reduce that response time and actually make sure customers are having a great experience. So I think that's one area where we've kind of seen, the nature of our solution fit in really well with what these Gen AI startups are looking for. Obviously, a number of our customers are continuing to train foundational models, where we've been able to sort of like source a lot more cost-effective and flexible supply globally to be able to kind of help them reduce costs. Some of our customers have been fine-tuning open source models like Llama, where a lot of those similar cost mechanics of helping reduce foundational model training apply as well. And I think what Gaurav mentioned about IO intelligence is really exciting because it actually expands our total addressable market now to a completely different set of developers and customers that we actually didn't really have access to, or we didn't really sort of were serving before, right? Because I think with IO intelligence, we're once again kind of thinking about the end developer experience and how we abstract away a lot of these complexities that a lot of developers don't actually want to deal with. So with IO today, with the IO Cloud today, a lot of folks actually have to deploy these own GPUs, kind of manage them, install CUDA drivers, like all sorts of things that a lot of developers actually don't want to deal with the complexities of. But with something like IO Intelligence, we actually start to take on a lot of those customers or those companies who build their whole business off of a ChatGPT API or a Claude API from Anthropic, and essentially fine-tune that and sort of do rag around it and build a business around that based on their proprietary data, right? So now by being able to serve these model endpoints as an API from IO Intelligence as well, we start to enable a solution that also benefits those type of developers and companies who actually don't want to deal with managing servers and just want to tap into an API and tap into an LLM and pay for pay per token essentially. So I think that's going to be a really exciting expansion for us.
For sure, Tarsif. Thank you for sharing that context. Yeah, it's great to see that we're essentially supporting, the next wave of innovation with some of these changes on our side and IO intelligence. And, it's definitely a step forward in embracing a lot of the new players within the space and some of the respective innovation that comes with that. So really appreciate you sharing that context. Now over to zero1. We've got a two-part question here, it seems. So Alejandro, they're asking that zero1 has positioned itself as a key player within the decentralized AI development space. But how does the Keymakers platform focus on enabling developers to create and deploy autonomous AI agents that essentially set you apart in the market? And secondly, they're asking, what are some of the more, like, let's say, technical or strategic advantages that you guys provide to developers looking to innovate within, naturally, the decentralized AI ecosystem?
Yeah, definitely. As previously mentioned, Keymaker, besides being Z1's multimodal AI marketplace, we feature more than 100 decentralized AI tools that devs and builders can access, which are again designed to streamline the creation of our early stage teams, decentralized apps, or even their specific AI agents. As well, through our partnerships and our networking, we're able to bring to our marketplace and ecosystem seasoned devs and experienced individuals who can help provide the technical expertise that's needed for these grassroots teams to move forward with their innovations. As we continue to expand our network and our ecosystem, we also expand the tools that are accessible through Keymaker, ultimately creating an eclectic marketplace and ecosystem in which devs can innovate and build within the decentralized AI ecosystem.
Cool, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Moving on to our next segment, which is essentially like the community segment, right? So people are sending in questions while they're listening to this AMA, and we've got a few very interesting questions that I think people want for both zero1 and ionet. What we're going to do is we're going to ask about 3 of the most meaningful questions that I see here, and hopefully that can give the community some of the necessary context that they need. Of course, if you guys have any more, feel free to tweet us. You've got Alejandro's also Twitter account there. Feel free to tweet him, and I'm sure we'll be more than happy to provide the necessary context. So, Back to Alejandro, one of the questions here is that as AI workloads become increasingly more demanding, how does the key maker essentially address scalability challenges whilst staying energy efficient?
Definitely. So as previously mentioned, with the partnerships that we continue to engage with, we bring forth more streamlined technology, I guess, in order for these developers to access and be able to build their applications or agents. Now this will in future hopefully bring an easier experience to our developers and users, making the UX and the UI a lot more easier to interact with, and hopefully easier for devs to bring forth their applications and technologies too.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. And while I've got you, I just want to expand on that point because something you touched on really relates to the next question. And someone wrote, beyond just autonomous AI agents, are there any other ambitious AI capabilities or applications you envision for KeyMaker over the next 3 to 5 years?
I have to be completely honest. At the moment, I think most of the technicalities and development for Keymaker, I'm not really aware of for the future and roadmap development of itself. But again, a lot of the things that we would like to see within Keymaker is a lot of these cost reduction, innovative technologies and applications that help grassroots teams and early stage teams, bring forth their technologies and applications. Um, but yeah, definitely. Other than that, I don't see at the moment much more innovation that can be brought forth.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And it's always interesting, guys, because naturally the Web3 space changes so much. I mean, we barely know what's happening sometimes 3 to 6 months in advance, let alone 3 to 5 years. And it just shows the pace of this industry. So very, very much resonate with what Alessandro said there. Like essentially like when Web3 ecosystems do develop within this space, naturally they will share those respective roadmaps, but to predict that far ahead is sometimes challenging because the innovation, the way that the industry moves, it's extremely fast paced and very volatile and very, very, very disruptive, right? And so it's almost like you are can sometimes be building the plane as it flies. And this is just something that we have to be cognizant of, especially within the Web3 space. I've got a question here that I'll probably direct to um, either Tarsif or Gaurav. But essentially, it's more of a holistic question, right, about the broader decentralized AI ecosystem. The question that's coming from the community that says, what role do you see partnerships like this playing in building a more robust decentralized ecosystem? For example, how can other players, startups, researchers, enterprises also contribute to the vision? So, Tarsif, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So I think this is actually kind of an extension of one of the previous questions I answered, right, about just how this partnership is sort of moving forward the overall decentralized AI ecosystem. But I think what's interesting here is sort of that additional point of like how other developers, researchers, professors can actually sort of continue to push the space forward, or how they can contribute to this vision as well. So I think a couple different ways that I can sort of think of off the bat here. I think first is really in terms of actually pushing forward, um, AI research and actually making it easier for a lot of developers to be able to, start building out of the box. I think one of the things that's kind of like a natural fit there is sort of this IO intelligence platform that we're talking about, right? So what we kind of really want to do is make it easier for every successive developer to be able to build on top of the research and work and all the open source work that has been done before, and kind of be able to make it even more efficient to get to market without having to do all of the steps that it takes to build a foundational model, like actually fine tune it, actually set up those models themselves. So I think one of the things that's a really exciting way to contribute to this vision is, especially if you're, in sort of like a university or a research-oriented function, is to be able to kind of like push out more open source models out there, right? Whether that's through IO intelligence, whether that's through Hugging Face, whether that's through a variety of different sort of distribution mechanisms, like even on like KeyMaker, that you'd be able to do. But fundamentally, I think right now there's sort of a handful of really key, like state of the art open source models that are more foundational, like such as Llama. But I think as there's a bigger proliferation of different types of models out there, and there's a need for these different types of models, I think people will start looking for, it's like, hey, I need the best AI model for a travel and hospitality use case, or for a finance use case, or for an education use case, for a healthcare use case. And I think we'll start to get more and more specialized down these particular verticals. And I think researchers who want to contribute to this ecosystem should start thinking about what does that next layer of open source models really look like, because I think with Llama, we've shown sort of how a generalist model fits this really well, but people still have to do the work to, either do RAG to it, or essentially kind of like fine tune it even more. But I think we'll start to see more and more sort of state of the art models that are more verticalized for specific use cases that I think will, kind of continue to expand the possibilities of innovation with each one.
Brilliant. That's incredibly helpful there, Tassif. I'm going to take one more question from the community prior to wrapping up the AMA. So, Gaurav, I think this question will be really ideal for you since it seems a little bit more tech related. But one of the community members is asking, what innovations are on ionet's roadmap to further enhance decentralized AI compute? For example, are there plans to integrate potentially new and emerging technologies such as quantum computing or advanced networking protocols in the future?
The answer is obviously yes. All these things are there on the table, right? But we are here to make sure that we just don't do cool stuff. We are here basically to do the work, which makes a difference in all these startups and the mid-tier companies which are coming up to succeed. So all these work, those sounds very interesting, and I and my team would love to work on that. I think fundamentally how we prioritize things here is that what are the techs which the industry needs to evolve, and among that list of all the things we need to do, what are the immediate needs of the startups itself which they're asking out of us, and then we prioritize things, right? And whatever feedback I've heard this quarter, although these two things which you talked about, I would love to work on that, but that's not a thing which I think startups are asking us. The first thing they asked us was for this environment of the whole IO intelligence. That was one. And I think going forward, we would work on more decentralization pieces of the network, right? Open sourcing more of our code. Then each and every piece, like right now, we have democratized the the GPU part, but there's a whole data piece of things also, right? Like when people start to create models on our platform, where do they source data from? Okay, is there a marketplace for data? Then people who are giving us the data, are they being incentivized? On the other side, people who will come to us and will use our platform for deploying models and creating models, how are they being incentivized to come to our platform? And then the way we store data, is that decentralized? So all these problems, I think, are more on priority what we see, but things may change. This is the reality today, because of the asks which have come from the community and startups. But if anything changes in the next month or so, we'll let you know.
Fantastic, Gaurav. I think you really hit the nail on the head there. It's not always just about throwing in the latest buzzwords of new technology. It's about understanding how it fits in the vision that we have based on what our customers need, right? And I think that's such an interesting point. That right there is really, from my perspective, what's always been the differentiating factor of ionet, is that we're constantly building towards innovation in a way that aligns to consumer needs in order to help this industry grow. So thank you so much for sharing that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been over 45 minutes. Thank you so much for tuning in. More and more and more of you have tuned in as the Twitter Spaces has gone on. Really appreciate the questions. Like, wow, some truly thought-provoking, groundbreaking questions there for both Zero and Ionet. First of all, I just want to say a huge shout out to Alejandro from the the 01 team. If you have not following 01 on Twitter, feel free to give them a follow. Feel free to follow Alejandro. Fantastic organization. And of course, we're incredibly excited from our side about this partnership. I'm sure you guys are going to see so much more to come, not only from this partnership, but from all the cool stuff that we are building together. So really appreciate the time that you've taken to think about your questions and send them through and give you the necessary context to understand what we're building, right? And I think that's the key here. It's not just about another partnership, it's about understanding how these partnerships are helping ecosystems work together in a seamless way, are helping drive innovation, and essentially helping the industry grow at large. So for that, first of all, Tassif, Gaurav, Alejandro, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to continuing our conversation even more. And thank you so much to IONation and 01labs' entire community for joining this AMA.